Hi everyone, and thank you so much, Karina, for that lovely introduction. I'm absolutely delighted and appreciate to have the opportunity to share with you the experience of my HPL and my learnings from it. Now, last weekend, I actually completed my HPL, which was to deliver online introductory training for new Toastmasters in two hour sessions over 2 consecutive weeks. I've been thinking for several years that there's been a bit of a gap in training for brand new Toastmasters. Now, we have club officer training for people taking on executive roles. We have district officer training for area directors, district directors, division directors. But when you first join a club, there's really not much in the way of formal training. Of course, you have your mentors and other club members to help guide you along the way. You have your welcome pack and manuals. But does everybody read manuals? Does everybody follow the links to the training that's provided? And I started thinking, well, wouldn't it be good if we could come up with some actual recorded training sessions that would be available online at any time for new Toastmasters, so that when they join, they could actually just log into a session at their convenience and actually see a presentation delivered rather than just reading about it. So how did I decide on the content of the training? When I joined Toastmasters 16 years ago, I didn't know a lot about the organisation. About 2 or 3 meetings in, we had a visit from an area director, or area governor as they were called then, and I had absolutely no idea what an area governor did, what an area was, or even what a division was. And you know those forms you fill in, the speaker's eligibility forms for contests, where you have the fields at the top for your club number, your area, your district? That was all a mystery to me. I just copied what was on anybody else's form. And I'd also heard things about a DCP and points for clubs, but I had no idea what that was all about. And I was going to ask if there were any new Toastmasters here today know what DCP stands for, but Tracy's just done a brilliant job of describing that and taking us through the program. So that saves one question for you. But I'd like you to think back to your first Toastmasters meeting, whether it was 6 months, 6 years, or 26 years ago. And remember back, did you understand everything that was going on then? Just give me a nod or shake your head. No. And did it take you a while to actually get to know what was happening in your club? Absolutely. So I'd like you to do a little exercise for me, please. If you could just quickly type into the chat in just a few words what sort of things you would have liked to have known more about at the time in the early days when you first joined Toastmasters, whether it was meeting roles or what the executive committee did, about table topics or how to participate, anything, just a couple of words. I'll give you a minute or so to do that. Okay, getting some good answers here. Did I have to ask for mentoring, or would it be arranged? How to navigate pathways? Outside of the club, that we were part of a district. The executive committee, DCP, mentoring, meeting roles. What each of the roles involved. And the difference between the pathways. Speech writing, organisational structure. Well, some fantastic responses there. And I'm actually delighted to say that a lot of those topics were what I included in my introductory training for new Toastmasters. Now, as we've heard today, since come to realise that, of course, all the information has been there all along, either on the Toastmasters International website or in the manuals, if I'd known where to look, or even if I'd bothered to read through them properly. But people learn in different ways. I don't know about you, but I like to be shown something and then go away and practice by myself. Like most people I know, I hate reading instruction manuals. Just show me how to work something, and then I can refer back to the manual later if I need to. Now, the Toastmasters International website has some amazing resources for learning and training. There are videos, there are tutorials, there are manuals, there are links to YouTube tutorials. The only thing is, there is so much information there, it can be quite overwhelming. And as Liz said earlier, you can log into the website and get lost in a sea of information. And some things, even if you know what they are, even if you type them in the search, they don't always come up. You have to do a bit of searching to find the information you're looking for. Now, I finally realised I had the opportunity to do something about this with my HPL. As Karina said, last year I took on the role of Area Director for BAS Division 1. Now, I'll let you into a little secret. I actually thought by taking on that role, it was the last thing I had to do to achieve my DTM. And then I found out, oh, actually, no, there's an HPL in there as well. Oh, and by the way, there's also a club coach or sponsor. Whoops. This is an absolute golden demonstration of the saying, fail to plan and plan to fail. So for 16 years, I've been a Toastmaster and I still haven't achieved my DTM. So I'd want to encourage other people to take up the suggestion that Liz had too about looking at all your pathways in advance, seeing what you need to do, knowing and planning so that you can ensure that all of your activities contribute to your achievements and your leadership goals. Anyway, when I became area director, I also found that I had now access to a whole group of wonderfully experienced Toastmasters that I didn't know existed before by attending the district officer training. And I soon got to learn who was expert in what field. So who was an expert in pathways, in easy speak, and all of the other areas, online training. So I ran the concept of introductory training for new Toastmasters past Carol McCulloch, who was the then Pathways Coordinator for the district. Now, Carol thought it was quite a good idea and she encouraged me to run with it and go ahead and organise it. So the first thing I did was to organise a guidance committee. As with a high performance leadership, you need a guidance committee to help you along the way. And I have to say, I had an amazing guidance committee, without whose support and encouragement, I would never have completed this project. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Karina Skegg, Carol McCulloch, Michael Clancy, and Stephen Angel, who have been a wonderful support to me. And they've been providing a lot of great suggestions and feedback, encouraging me to think of things that I wouldn't necessarily have thought about on my own, and also not taking over the project, always reminding me it was my project and up to me, but still having that support behind me, which was fantastic. So thank you all very much. The first task I had to do was to create a vision, a mission, and some core values for how this project was going to be developed. And my vision was to give new members an overview of the structure of Toastmasters, a basic understanding of the foundations of the education program, and basic skill sets to get started on projects and opportunities for growth and development in and beyond the club. My mission was to provide the foundation of sequential and effective online training for new members. I chose 3 core values for how this should be developed. The first one was that information provided to new Toastmasters would be clear and succinct and not overwhelming. Secondly, that information on where to find resources to expand knowledge further would be provided at each stage. So after the taste of the information, there was still somewhere else to go to get more detailed information if that was where the person's interest lay. And that each section of training would lead on to the next logical step. So what were the challenges? Well, one of the main things was deciding how long each session would run for and when it would be held. Because it's really hard to assess, first of all, how much time people can afford to spend sitting in front of a computer on our Zoom meetings. We don't want it to be too long. You can't take in too much information over a long period of time. And then there was the days and times of the training. I guess we've had a bit of an advantage with the COVID lockdown, meaning that most people are at home most of the time, so there may be a bit more availability. But many of those people are actually working from home during the day, and they can't attend Toastmasters training during the day. So that really left the weekends. I was also conscious of not wanting to take up too much people's family time. And then, of course, there's also the District 73 calendar of events and club officer training and presentations and other training and events from the district. So I had to pick a couple of Sundays that were free on the calendar and hopefully wouldn't clash with anything else. And then finally, a challenge was actually how much content could we put into each session comfortably in the time allocated. But we wanted the presentation, the information to be fairly basic, but enough information to give the members sufficient information to do the jobs and give them the confidence to do the roles that they wanted to do. So that was a bit daunting, really. And the final question was, did I accomplish my mission? Overall, yes, I believe I did. In the first session, I delivered an overview of Toastmasters, its structure, how it works, how the organisation runs, and where the club fits in, and also touched on the Distinguished Club Programme, or DCP, as we now know it to be. And then we had an introduction to pathways, what pathways is and how to choose your path, and also some sessions on how to sign up for meeting roles and request speeches through either Easy Speak or Free Toast Host, a session in each breakout room depending on which platform the club was using. And also some strategies on how to reach the green light in table topics, which Tom presented. So as you can imagine, that was a very entertaining and interactive session. On the second day, part 2, we had an overview of the basic meeting roles from Debbie, which was fantastic. We then had some tips on how to prepare and put colour into your speech, and followed by the advanced meeting roles, an overview of what they entailed, the Toastmaster, Table Topics Master, etc. So we had a pretty comprehensive amount of information in the training sessions, quite a variety and different presenters for each session. So hopefully people got a bit of variety in the way the information was presented. After the training, all the attendees were emailed links to the further training from each module of the sessions, and so now they have the opportunity to follow up further if they would like to. I will also be sending details and links to all of the division directors going forward so that they can share them with their area directors and clubs. So the training is now recorded in the individual modules on the D73 website under resources and presentations. So as I say, I will share that link with everybody going forward. Now, the other questions that I needed to answer for Karina and everyone was, what did I learn from the process and what would I do differently next time? Well, one of the key learnings was preparation and practice is really important. I had to think through the project, think through the training from every stage. When you're actually online, how does one segment going to flow into the next? Who's involved? How are you going to link the segments together? And just the very fine detail of how it's all going to work. And if you're using polls, the polls need to be set up in Zoom beforehand. It's really important to work with the Zoom master and be clear on the flow of the meeting, the agenda and the timing for each section so that everybody's on the same page. It's lucky for me, part of my leadership style, I do pay a lot of attention to detail, but I have the ability to see the big picture as well. And I think that's quite a useful combination because you need both for any project. The other thing I might have done differently was review the content. Even though I'd rehearsed and practiced times, on the actual day of delivery, it did feel sometimes as if there was quite a lot of information and it might have been a bit overwhelming. So I would have liked, if I was doing it again, to involve the audience a little more and try and get some more interactivity like Tom has done in his sessions. And as I said before, people learn in different ways. Some people learn by doing, some people like to have that hands-on experience. But the only thing that I was thinking with that sometimes is that the participation part can take up quite a lot of time. And time was something I guess we didn't have an awful lot of. So it's that balancing act, isn't it, of trying to get the right balance between participation and getting the information across. So I would really consider that more next time. And I would probably have a run through of the whole session, the whole 2-hour session together with all the presenters one after the other, and just check the timings and see whether one presenter might have needed a bit less time to allow someone else a bit more if there was more interaction, that sort of thing. Another thing, as somebody said about sending out links to the meeting, I think, Jules, you said you were sending out links for people to remind them for the training. Well, I actually sent out the links to the training a couple of weeks beforehand, the registration link, and asked people to register, and I got quite a good response. And then I found on the day of the first training, there were lots of emails and texts. I can't find this link to the training. Can you please resend it? So the next session, I actually sent a reminder email the day before and had the Zoom link in that, and that seemed to solve the problem. It was much easier the second time round. So these are just small things, but things that actually help the training run more smoothly. So that was more on the technical side and the organisation of the training. So what did I learn about leadership? Well, of course, it's really important when you're running a project to have a team of people with the right skill sets to make the project successful. So it's important to choose your team according to their skills and making sure that you have the right combination of people to make it work. I was really lucky with my team. I had a wonderful experienced Zoom master, Danny Streets, and then I had Robin O'Donnell the second time who wanted to step up and practice her Zoom master skills, and she did a wonderful job of the Zoom master for me the second day, so I had great support in the background there. Had wonderful timers too, Mandy Cook, and also I had another timer, second one, my name's just gone, my mind's blank, sorry. So the two-timers were really good. And of course, my teams of presenters did an awesome job of presenting on each of the topics. And they all had their own styles, and it was really interesting. I was delighted with the jobs that they did on their presentations. One of the difficulties, I suppose, when you're leading a team of people, if you're a self-confessed control freak and perfectionist, like I think I am, is letting go of the reins and allowing people to do their own thing. So I can identify with Tom. When you hand over to someone else, you've got to remember you're not in control of that piece. And so communication about what you would like is absolutely critical in your guidelines. Now, one thing that I would absolutely do differently, and I omitted to do this time, was to actually have a meeting with all of my presenters together instead of communicating with them individually. I think it would have been a much better outcome if we could have all got together and bounced ideas off each other, or for everybody to clearly understand, make sure everyone was on the same page, and maybe given each other ideas on how to present or what could work, or maybe complement each other with their presentations. So next time round, definitely more communication and a group meeting so they could build relationships, the opportunity to build more relationships between themselves rather than just one-on-one. So I think that's a really important piece of advice that I would give anyone going forward. And as I said before, plan ahead, see what needs to be done, and know all the requirements beforehand. Read the manual. There's lots of useful information in there to help you along your way with your HPL. Now, I can't see the timer. Am I still going for time?
You're on red there.
Sorry, okay. So that's it. So I'm hoping now that when I provide the link to my introductory training for new Toastmasters, that it will find its way into the new member introduction kits in all of your clubs, and that somebody else might like to build on my HPL going forward and use it as an idea for theirs in the future. Thank you all very much.